doing push-ups. I've been doing sit-ups. I've been doing chin-ups. I've been doing pull-ups. I threw up once, but I'm okay now.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome into a beautiful Tuesday edition. If you look outside, the sun is shining. It's a little bit chillier than it looks outside, but it's beautiful nonetheless. DJ Oakley with you on this Tuesday edition of the Ysn Power Hour, brought to you by our friends at Toyota of Warren. Man, it was a great day yesterday, a great night. I had a chance to sit down. Well, I was standing in the back of the room. But it was ring ceremony night in South Range, a day that has been, 3-4 months in the making. And I was able to take part in that, just looking to watch and support. And naturally, of course, as Dan Yakeley always does, has a trick or two up his sleeve. And at the end of the night, I was so humbled and honored to receive a state championship ring. Along with the rest of the team, the coaches. And I can't tell you how much that means to me as someone who never imagined himself wearing a state championship ring of any means, outside of my high school days. And, even then it was, I don't think we even got the districts. But what an honor it was. And I kept kind of alluding to the fact that I'm, not worthy of this. And Coach Yagley, the coaching staff, the players, like they do, and like we hear so much in the surrounding communities and the YSN family, they feel like we're part of the team. And not only can I appreciate that, but I love that. I really, really am grateful for that, and not only in my case scenario, but also for all of the announcers across the board at YSN. So grateful that, we're welcoming the families and, the almost the inner circles, right, of some of these teams. And we're just very grateful and very honored, very humbled by this. So thank you so much to the South Range community again for making us feel not only welcome, but part of the family. Like we can relax a little bit, let our hair down. And last night was a celebration, and I love seeing the pictures and looking forward to Canfields here in a few days. I from what I hear, and hopefully that tradition continues to carry on, and the rings keep coming in to the family of YSN. I know Hoban's got one coming too now for basketball. So congratulations again to the South Range Raiders, as well as the Canfield Cardinals and the Archbishop Hoban Knights, who will be celebrating their rings very soon. Hey, Jimmy Powers is watching today. Jimmy, how are you, buddy? Good to see you. Good to hear from. Well, I guess I can't see you, but it's good to see you on the show. Good to hear from you. And if you don't know Jim Powers, he had one of the most powerful, no pun intended, but kind of is, sit downs and interviews. Jim Powers is a guy that I've looked up to for a very, very, very long time before I was ever in front of this microphone. One of the best sports minds and fans, I think I can say that, of this area that there has ever been. And Jim Powers is doing big things out west. I want to make sure I'm going. I mean, I know my states, believe it or not, Jimmy. I know them. But you're doing big things out there away from the 330 and making us all very proud. So congratulations on that to you. He says you deserve it. That's still up for debate. I don't feel that way. I feel that it was just, we're doing our job. We're our mission still yet to be accomplished. So still honored, still humbled, and it was a great night, and so happy for those kids. So happy for the student athletes. I got to get used to that. I have to get used to that. So happy for the student athletes, so happy for the coaches, so happy for that community to celebrate, put a bow on it, right? And now we move on. And now it's David Rock who will turn the attention to the 2023 season. That will be, and he will look to repeat. And it's never easy, right? Now you're on the radar, South Range. Now it comes, you're in the crosshairs. But you also have the champion's advantage. So what are you going to do with that championship title in 2023? And we are going to be following that all the way into December, hopefully, for the South Range Raiders. More stuff that happened that was great. Had a nice little walk this morning. Got a text message earlier this morning with a little bit of motivation from that Scott Mann that I talked about a little bit. The retired Green Beret, a guy that we're going to have on this show and talk about leadership. And he has a podcast that's out right now about East Palestine that I listened to this morning, and was tell you what, if Folgers didn't wake me up, that one did. It was an hour-long podcast, and I'm a huge fan of Scott Mann. Now ordered all 3 of his books, dug into one a little bit this morning. But the excitement is now the true story is getting out, the story of the people, and the story the narrative that we control, not necessarily the negative. And we're not going to get into all that because this is a sports broadcast. However, if you want to look up the Rooftop Leadership, check that out. Scott Mann on all your, I believe, on all the different podcast platforms. Mine was on, I think it was just Apple Podcasts. So check that out if you can. We'll have Scott Mann on hopefully in the next couple weeks or so, talking about leadership, talking about a lot of stuff, talking about just kind of where he was. And if you don't know, and you're not familiar with Scott Mann, he's a retired Green Beret who orchestrated a lot of the Operation Pineapple Express over in Afghanistan and got, I want to say, over 1,000 people out when our government kind of not gave up, but left everybody hanging. So he came into East Palestine last week on Thursday, spent about 12 hours with him. And it was an honor and a privilege. And I feel blessed to be able to spend that time. And hopefully it helps and it rolls over into the leadership for yours truly, as well as the people, not only of East Palestine, but other business owners that I can pour into their cup as well. So awesome stuff this morning. And even more so yesterday, kind of going non-linear here, yesterday, 2 no-hitters, both of them coming from United. So without further ado, I'm going to try to scan through some of this that you can find on your own at ysnlive.com. You look at and some teams couldn't play yesterday. They're still trying to get over the wind and the rain and all that we've been having, and got a little bit more rain yesterday. But I can tell you, in Hanoverton, there was not a whole lot of hitting going on by the other team in Lisbon, but it was United who, at least in the softball, start with the ladies. After the afternoon filled with rain, United was able to get the game in on Monday night to open up their season against Lisbon. And Tori Firth, who, if you don't know anything about Tori Firth, you're going to. And if she didn't catch your attention last year, she's going to be on the radar a lot this year. She made a wonderful debut in her 2023 campaign, opening up the game with a walk. She struck out the side and never looked back. And she ended up with a no-hitter to open the season. And I know she's had a few of those in her career. A complete blowout for United yesterday, and an 18-0 victory over the Lady Devils. And when you're looking at Tori Firth, I want to say she's committed to Hiram. Don't quote me on that, but I want to say she's committed to Hiram. I know she committed, but I believe she's committed to Hiram. Firth got the Eagles started with an RBI triple, the bottom of the first. Eagles smashed 4 home runs on the night. Grace Coffey, Sam Lippiett, Firth, and Josie Wargo all left the yard. Coffey and Lippiett both led with the RBIs with 3 apiece. First final line in the circle, 5 innings pitched, 14 Ks, 1 walk that led off the ball game, and 64% of her 83 pitches were strikes. So she is peppering the zone like it's cottage cheese. That's what she's doing. She's going to be a person to look out for, and would not shock me, would not surprise me if you see Tori Firth land on the first edition of the Big Dogs of the Valley here for softball in the coming week. Also, on the other side of that, and I just have the lowlights. I don't want to say lowlights, but I just have kind of the brief outline, the Cliffs Notes, if you will, for the boys. And thanks to Mr. Newbern, who sent over kind of by the way, before I get to this, if you have or are in control or know of any of our teams in the YSN area that have Game Changer. Now, we're affiliated with Game Changer, so we are allowed to and permitted to do this. If you are affiliated with Game Changer, know that your team uses Game Changer, please send it to us. That way we can, every single game that you have, we're going to try and get on YSN, on the translate it from Game Changer to our stories. So that way the kids get covered more. Even if we're not there, we'll be able to cover the stories and make sure that, if your son, your daughter, you have RBIs or a home run or strikeouts or anything of that nature, have a big game, you can have it be in lights. So help us out with that if you wouldn't mind. It is your sports network after all, right? So help us, help you, help me, help you. But yeah, you look at Mr. Newbern sent me this. I want to make sure there was another no-hitter last. There we go. Perfect. Right there. All right. So Trent Newbern, who we know is supremely talented and one of the best pitchers in this area, threw his first no-hitter to open up the season. He had been battling injuries, if you remember correctly. Throws a no-no last night against Lisbon. 13 Ks in 5 innings, 11-0 win for United. His little brother Parker caught him and is on the bump tonight versus Minerva. We appreciate the heads up. Pardon me, heads up on that. And I reached out to him and said, hey, if you guys have Game Changer, slide it over to me so that way we can get you covered. And I'll be working on that the entire time. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to finish talking about some of these unbelievable stories. The best, I'm not even kidding you. The best came from Austintown Fitch yesterday because you had the tale of two stories from the Falcons. You had Sydney Watts, who is, to me, she and Tori Firth are neck and neck for potential MVP, potential player of the year, right? And the weight that was from last year to this year, from Austintown Fitch's great run in softball last year to this year, I can't remember a team in any sport that I was looking forward to more than I am right now with this Austintown Fitch softball team. Cannot. But with that comes, there's a lot of hype around them, right? And it's not just us speaking about it. This is a team that is filled, right, with potential talent, with potential of a state championship or bust. I mean, we've seen it in Canfield with baseball. We've seen it in South Range with baseball. We've seen it, but very rarely do those big hype things pay off. Those kind of manifested hype dreams and pipe dreams, very rarely do they constitute and end up in a championship. And it makes me nervous for Austintown Fitch, and I'm not knocking them by any means. I'm not knocking them. But I think that there's a little bit of pressure there. And what I like that they're doing, from the coaches to the players, is they're not going to back down. There's a lot of players from that team on Austintown Fitch that believe and are pulling from the same end of the rope, right? But as we know, as you climb up those divisions, it gets tougher and it gets tougher and it gets tougher. And I don't see Austintown Fitch or the Lady Falcons backing down from this challenge one iota. But what I do see is the more opportunities that you have. And the more hype surrounds this team, the bigger that target gets. And that's with any sport. That's not just this team. But I'm going to tell you one thing is that Sid Watts is the real deal. Anytime you can have a pitcher that attacks like she does, and we just talked about Torrey Firth, and I think they're going to be kind of, married at the hip this entire season. What an all-star game this is going to be. Just a spoiler. Hopefully City can play this year. But Austintown Fitch yesterday absolutely battled. Absolutely battled. And, they had their fill of it. They were taken to the max. So you look into this, and I'm kind of reading through this write-up that Ty put together. Crazy weather, number one, right? Then you look into everything being postponed except for Fitch playing on that turf for the most part. And Howland comes to town, and they want the first crack at Fitch and Sydney Watts. So they got it. Watts ended up striking out. I'm going to roll down here. Here. Sydney Watts ends up going all 7, gives up 2 hits, 1 walk, strikes out 19. 19. On the other side, Lexi Spangler goes 2, gives up a hit, 2 Ks. Brooke Tater goes 4 innings, gives up a run, the only run of the ball game, and has earned 2 walks and 5 Ks. So 7 Ks total for the Lady Tigers. And for Sid Watts, she goes the distance, shocker, and goes 19 Ks. 19 strikeouts. And if I didn't get to see any of the game. However, I had to believe that Ty was probably going bananas, hoping for that 20th strikeout so he can say that Sid Watts had a 20 strikeout game. What's going to be crazy is these two teams will match up. And I have a love-hate relationship with this, with the back-to-backs. I think it works in baseball. I'm not so sure it works in softball. Softball, you can see the same pitcher in the circle Tuesday into Wednesday, Monday into Tuesday, whatever it may be, right? Baseball, you can't typically, unless you're going to see like a back-end reliever. So you look at what it looks like today. They're meeting back on the same field, replay the AAC showdown, as Ty says. This could be another 1-0 either way, because I think Howland is very strong this year. I think Howland is very strong. And if they didn't show it with a 1-0 loss yesterday to a team that potentially could win state, Howland could throw a lot of questions into the answer pot here for Austintown Fitch. But I like Fitch's schedule. I think it's a competitive schedule. I think it's going to be a schedule that is going to test them. It's going to test Sydney Watts inside the circle and out. I think it's going to test a lot of what they were trying to accomplish last year. And I think that's going to make them mentally tough. You have a lot of leaders on that team right now. A lot of leaders on that Austintown Fitch team. You have a lot of leaders on Howland. Howland is and should be looking for a little bit of revenge and blood this time. They know they've got to put up a run. That might be enough for Howland. If they get 2 runs, it might be enough. Or will it be another opportunity for Fitch to have a close one, and then is it going to be a blowout? I think a lot of people are wondering that as we head into tonight's action. Final game we're going to talk about from yesterday's slate is going to be the Austintown Fitch boys. Now, this one is interesting. But yeah, just want to make sure it's a 1-0 final score on that. This one was interesting. This one I was kind of watching. We have a group chat, and the Austintown Fitch boys with a walk-off win. And to say it was dramatic is like saying that Michael Jordan was above average, right? This game, let's read this out. Austintown Fitch took their game took the game in dramatic walk-off fashion on Monday night, thanks to a walk-off double at the end of the ball game to topple Howland. Final score was it 11-1? 11-10. 11-10. 11-10. There was a misprint here. So they were down 10-1 in the 7th inning. Backs against the wall. They were up against it, and they come out and they scored 10 runs and walk away with the ball game. Rocco DeFlorio with the game-winning knock on a 1-1 count, scoring those 2 runs and giving Fitch their first win of the year. When you think about it, it's typical Fitch. It's what Joe Paris preaches day in and day out. It's you don't give up until the final out is recorded. And I have got to give credit where credit is due. This Fitch team lost a lot. I mean, you look at, they've got a D1 pitcher now at Akron. They lost a ton. They've got I want to say shortstop at Finley. I don't know if they still got Mikey there, but I think they do. But what Fitch lost is, I don't want to say nothing because it's a lot, but the advantage that Fitch has this year is they had a lot of young guys that got a lot of experience last year. And while their record doesn't necessarily show it on the 2022 campaign, these guys could sneak under the radar and compete for another AAC title. Because there were a lot of other teams that lost a lot as well. Boardman's one of those teams. Canfield's one of those teams. Howland's one of those teams. Don't sleep on the Falcons. Don't sleep on the Birds. Falcons get an 11-10 victory last night. Congratulations to them. All right. Final game we are going to look at here is going to be a, let's just put it bluntly. It was a blowout. And the Indians of Southern Local, they got things going and did not look back. Again, cloudy sky day, and it was a 10-0 victory for the Southern Local Indians over the Latonia Bears, powering Southern to 10 runs, 7 hits. Brady Ketchum, who played in our All-Star game on Saturday, he had 3 hits, driving in 6 runs. That's a big night for the big man. Southern jacked the long ball in the game. Let me see. Ketchum driving in runs. Spallinger. You got Chuck McCulley in there as well. Mason Pitts, who had a hit as well in the ball game. Spallinger started the game on the bump for Southern. Gave up the one and only hit to Latonia in that, I believe it was the first inning. So congratulations. Southern Local starts their EOAC on the right foot, their EOC bid on the right foot, and they will get things going again, I'm assuming tonight. And we're looking at the sun's kind of hiding behind the clouds right now, so we'll see how it goes. But if you want to know what and how the weather is going to affect you tonight, head over to your app store, or your Google Play, whatever the heck they call it for all you weirdos that have Androids, and get the 21 Storm Tracker 21 app. There we go. And you'll have up-to-minute daily as well as hourly projections on how you will be affected. Do you need to bring your umbrella? Do you need to bring a coat? Do you need to bring your sunscreen? What do you need to bring to tonight's game? All of that can be utilized, and you'll be up-to-date and informed on the Storm Tracker 21 app, brought to you by our good friends over at Channel 21 WFMJ. We love you, appreciate you, and thank you so much for all the support. So one of the things that I'm going to talk about today, and we're going to have to break this up. I'll probably take a little early break. And from that, we're going to talk about entitlement a little bit. I caught this on with Deion Sanders, and I'm going to share it with all of you. And we'll talk about it on the backside. But I'm really interested. Deion Sanders has me intrigued. At first, it's just on Amazon Prime, and this is all a gimmick, as they say in the wrestling world. This is all a work. But I'm starting to buy into it. I'm starting to think that Deion Sanders is just a real dude. not just when the cameras are on, but this is legit because I know he's wearing cowboy hats now because he's in Colorado. I truly believe that he's going to turn Colorado around and make them a top 10 team in the nation the next 18 months ish. But some of the things that he said, and I'm going to be leaning on you a little bit to make sure that you can hear this. But so this is interesting to me from a standpoint of what he said. Now I got to change the background because we got to make sure that we're tied up the right way. But from my standpoint, this was very interesting to me because my guy is just letting it fly. So let's see if it plays here for us. All right, so there you have it. I just wanted everybody to kind of get focused on that. So Deion Sanders again, prime time. If you know Deion Sanders, and I think everybody does. Oh, had a little Deion in the background. Um, what he's been able to do, Jackson State. He's created opportunities for young men, and he's created a winning culture, and he's creating another winning culture in Colorado. But he's doing it in my theory, in my particular taste, he's doing it the right way. And he's doing it because a lot of these guys have become entitled. A lot of these student athletes, and I'm not just saying single out the guys, there's a lot of female student athletes as well that have become entitled, and they walk in and they say, hey, guess what? I was number 3 in high school. I'm the number 1 recruit on this team. I'm going to walk in and take it off of somebody. Well, in the professional ranks, and I might be enlightening some people on this, and some may know this, in the professional ranks, if you want a number and somebody else has it, a lot of times you're paying them for that number. So, for instance, this won't happen, nor would I want it to. Lamar Jackson is number 8, and he decides that he wants to stay number 8, and he joins the Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, the Pittsburgh Steelers have a number 8, and his name is Kenny Pickett. He was the number 1 draft pick last year. If Lamar Jackson wanted that number 8, he would have to pay Kenny Pickett a nominal charge to take it off of him. And in that charge would include, and I want to make sure that I understand this correctly, so I might be a little bit off on this, but it's the same context, same idea. anytime a player changes their number, for the exception of when they allowed players to change, if a player wants to do it on their own, they have to buy up the inventory of any of the jerseys that are out there through Nike or whoever it may be. So if Kenny Pickett decides that he's going to change numbers, he's going to have to pay a considerable fee to buy out the inventory of the jerseys that other people are trying to sell, because that jersey now becomes absolutely, I think it's cool, but it becomes basically an undergarment. I mean, you're not going to use it. You're not going to necessarily wear it to games because there's an updated number. So a lot of times when, if Lamar Jackson would want the number 8, he would have to pay that fee for Kenny Pickett. Plus he'd pay either Kenny or Kenny's charity or whoever it may be, for the honor of taking that number. Right. So there's that. What Dion, Coach Prime, is talking about is there's this really, really intriguing infatuation with single-digit numbers that I've never been able to understand. I was always a double-digit guy, because if I'm getting my money's worth in numbers in the stitching, right? My number's 31. That's my identifier. I've been, when there's no double-digit numbers, and we've been on those teams before, I'm either a 3 or a 1, but I don't identify with either one of those. It's 31. But football players love single-digit numbers. Prime, and when he went to Florida State, was number 2. And when he said it, when you're number 1, you're that guy. You're that guy. And mama's wearing your jersey in the stands. But when you're getting toasted, you're getting burnt to a crisp as a defensive back, or you're dropping balls as a receiver, or you're not completing passes, or you're fumbling the football, or whatever that is, mama's still wearing that number 1, and she's going to catch a little bit of grief. And we've seen it before. That's why not that their parents are ashamed of their kids, but you're risking it, right? You're risking it. Anytime you put another man or woman's name on the back of you, and you go and you support them, if they have a rough game, you're going to hear it for some people. You're going to hear it. It's the risk of wearing and supporting and wearing that jersey, right? That's why some of us, no names, are putting their own names and numbers on their jerseys. That in the free agency world is a little bit crazy. So when he's talking about, these guys are entitled, these guys, they're doubling up numbers, right? So what he means by that is, if you go to an Ohio State and you're number 84, let's say, right? And there's 2, 3 number 84s, probably 2 of the 3 of you aren't playing. 84 might be one of the, if you're the senior or you're the standout, you might play. But if you're doubled up on a number, what Prime's saying is you're probably not going to be playing, because you can't identify. So I want to know what happens if they eject a player. They eject 84. Would that other player ever get a chance? Or is he DQ, disqualified, can't come in, because that number should be the player? But I think that number, it would be very, very interesting to see that happen if there was a double dip. But a lot of times you see it in those single-digit numbers. You see Ohio State comes to mind when they had a number 7 on offense and a number 7 on defense. I'm trying to remember what his name was actually 7. I want to say it was 7 Fields, maybe. It's not 7 Springs. That's a ski resort. And then CJ Stroud was number 7. So that's one of those interesting ones. But if there's another number 7 on the team on offense or defense, he's probably not playing. Prime talks about the offensive lineman wanting number 0. And this isn't fat shaming anybody, but when big boys wear single digits, it is a weird look. It's just a weird look. I mean, they're just like the big guys should be wearing double digits. Like, even if it's 10, like, that's good. It's 10. It's a round number. You're a round human being. It's a little bit bigger, fills out the jersey a little bit better. But when you see these behemoth human beings wearing like number 1, that's weird. I will tell you, though, I don't know the answer to this question. And I pose this to football coaches. Why aren't there more number 90s and like 90 through 99 in high school? Do you ever know? Maybe you don't, but I do. Do you ever notice that the 90 through 99 is never available in high school, or very rarely? Now, I will tell you some of the tricks of the trade with some teams is the number 1 is typically off limits. And I love it. I love that rule. And every team seems to, the teams that do it, I shouldn't say every team does it because I've seen the number 1 before. The teams that do it, I identify with. And I love it. I absolutely love this rule. The team comes first. So I know Crestview and Paul Cusick, who obviously everybody knows is stepping down as the football coach of Crestview and stepping into a new role beginning next year as the East Liverpool head coach. He has a role, at least in Crestview, and I'll be interested to ask him the next time I see him. The number 1 at Crestview is in a frame in the locker room. And it, I believe, on the back says team or Rebels or something along that line. I'm a huge fan of that. Like, huge fan. I love that mindset. To have that where it's never, one can never be taken, because number 1 should always be the team. Team first, that's family first. That's everything, right? Love that. You look at South Range in the numerous traditions that they have, the no stickers on the helmet, the just the clean look. One of the biggest rules they have is that there's no single digit numbers at all. There's no 1, no 2, no 3, no 4, no 5, no 6, no 7, no 8, no 9. Because Dan Yeagley says it takes 2 always. And nobody does it alone, including the numbers on their uniform. Love that. Love that. Even if it seems silly to some people, it might seem absolutely just, oh my gosh, how tacky is this or that or the other thing? You are creating a culture by doing that. You are creating rules that these kids will follow perhaps for the rest of their life. Some of those gentlemen, some of those ladies might take that on to their own platforms if they coach someday. In talking to David Rock at South Range, there's not a whole lot of things that he's going to change from the tradition. He's a traditional guy. And some of these traditions that either started with Dan Yeagley or were carried on by Dan Yeagley, these Raiders fell in love with. Raider Nation fell in love with. Same with Coach Cusick. I am sure that there is going to be different things that Coach Perry does to make it have a different feel, right? To have his own kind of fingerprints on the program. However, Coach Perry has been, his DNA is basically built into the Crestview Rebel program. And he's been doing it alongside of Paul Cusick. And you look at those 2 programs, those are 2 of the programs that I know the best. So I'm just kind of pushing it out there. Every program has their own thing, right? But the traditions, I imagine, will stay the same. I imagine the culture, for the most part, will stay the same. There might be a little bit, I expect Dave Rock to be a little bit more teeth at this point in his career, to put his foot down. Not that Dan Yeagley, let off the gas. But I think there's a little bit more of a hey, there's a new sheriff in town kind of mentality, and you're not going to bowl me over. It's like having the substitute teacher, right? When the substitute teacher came in, everybody thought that they were going to manipulate and tell the substitute teacher all these different things. You know, we don't have any homework. All we do is watch TV and watch movies. Da, da, da. Coaches that are coming in, even if they're not new, have to set the tone and either create a culture or maintain the culture. And those two guys, and Paul Cusick will have to do the same thing at East Liverpool. Choice has to be made. With Deion Sanders, what he's done in Colorado, and for those of you just joining us, we ran a clip on Deion Sanders about numbers and, you know, kids have to work for stuff. Deion said, hey, when I had to buy new school clothes, I had to work for it. My kids have to work for it. That's why you take so much pride in what you do and what you have is because you had to work for it. I don't think that anybody that receives a ring or receives a championship bid or anything that works really hard and is successful, no matter what that looks like, I think a lot of times, if not all the time, these people are working for what they're getting. That's why you appreciate it a little bit more. When you reflect on a good day, a lot of times you look into it and it's not the fact that everything went your way that day, but maybe the fact that you worked so hard that you were able to fulfill some of the things that you really wanted to do. Maybe you got on a roll. Maybe it's a hot streak, right? Whether you're in a game, whether you didn't miss a free throw, that was one of your goals. Maybe you locked down defense. Maybe it was, having a great sales pitch at work. Maybe it was just having a good podcast that day. Maybe it was just making it through the day. You look at that in the hard work, the efforts that you put forth, created that. And that's what makes it a good day, right? That's what makes it fulfilling and worth it and all of that. I love what Deion Sanders is doing. I love what Dave Rock is potentially going to do, because I've heard some of the, bullet points. I love that Don Perry's taken over at Crestview. I love that Paul Cusick has taken the reins in East Liverpool. If you didn't know, I'm a huge believer in many of our coaches, if not every single one of them. Maybe not every single one of them, but 99%. And it's not because I don't like that 1%. It's just we're on different wavelengths. We're on different, and that's I'm not a coach. I don't criticize. It's just things that I don't agree with. You might not agree with 99% of the coaches. That's okay. We're allowed to agree to disagree. But I would say this is the best coaches in high school oftentimes turn out to be lifelong friends, mentors, and leaders of these young people's life. And you think about your particular story. How many of you, when I say the word coach, envision somebody right away and it's a positive experience? I know in my mind, when I think of coach, I think of many people and people that I think very highly of, because coaches are influencers to me. Coaches should be influencers to many. You look around at some of the schools that we have, and there's not a great male role model in that household, but there's great male role models or female role models on the floor, in the locker room, on the diamond, in the dugout, on the bus, in the classroom. That's where the culture is created. That's where, at the end of the day, when Prime says, I'm so proud of everything that I've earned, he's earned the respect because he does he makes the tough decisions. I mean, there's coaches that have to suspend players. Do you think that's what they want to do? No. There's coaches that have to make really tough decisions, really challenging decisions that could affect their team's performance, or more importantly, could affect the lives of their student athletes down the road. And they've got to make tough decisions based on what's right. And ultimately, a coach should continue to make those tough choices not because it's going to hurt the kid or teach them a lesson, because it's going to play out better down the road. It's not easy to suspend a young man or a young lady. It's not easy to do what coaches do, and they're certainly not getting compensated for half of what they do. I mean, I think most coaches, if you break down the hours that they put in, it's pennies on the dollar. But every coach I talk to, for the most part, when those successes, I mean, you can always see it, right? You can always see it in a coach's face, in a leader's face, when there's that success. And success doesn't always mean wins and losses. Sometimes it's leading them, and you have a young man or young lady that got a hit that never, ever had a hit before, or the first ever bucket, or the first ever touchdown, or a play that you couldn't get right in practice the day before worked flawlessly the next day. Those smiles that you see on coaches' faces, that's because they know their influence. They know the culture that they created. They know the impact that they've created, because those coaches can now go back and say, hey, remember when you didn't do the play right 45 times in practice, but we ran it on Friday night and you nailed it, and it went 75 yards for a touchdown. You remember that? Go run this play. It's instilling confidence. And in today's world, that's what we need. We need confidence. We need positive reinforcement. We need identifiers that you look at and you say, okay, it was tough to create this culture because of this. However, you look at the end line, you look at the finish line, and you go, look what it created. It may not create a state championship. It just might create better people. And that's equally as important, if not more so. Listen, all those state championship rings that were handed out last night and all the ones that'll be handed out by Canfield here in the short coming weeks, that's really good. And that's really exciting. But Dan Yeagley had a great reason and what the ring represents. Yes, it represents you had a really good game. Yes, it represents you had a really good season. Yes, it represents this, that, but it represents your commitment to excellence. He made the point last night when other people were going out and having fun and doing what they were wanting to do. Those gentlemen did what they had to do, not for themselves, but for each other. Very rarely do you get through an entire season, especially if that season's 16 weeks, and you don't look at yourself in the mirror and go, man, I wish I could just go take a nap. I need. I want. They put all of those I needs, I wants to the side and created a culture, and they were rewarded for it. And that reward, yes, while it is fleeting and they'll look back and that 20 years is going to go like that, they'll continue to look down at that ring and they'll remember what they sacrificed in order to get there, in order to have that moment that none of them will ever forget. That's the important thing, folks. That's the important thing, not the championship. South Range, Canfield, Hoban, listen, it's important. We're happy. We're excited for you. But the moments that you sacrifice leading up to that championship, take that same characteristic and look at your life. A lot of these guys, 18 years old or younger, if they can take that, or you as a coach can take those 17, 18-year-olds that you have on your varsity roster and you can translate it from sports to life, you're going to be a success. They're going to be a success. That's what it's all about. Coach Prime is I'm sure that he's really excited. I'm sure that he is set for the rest of his life financially. This isn't necessarily something he has to do to get paid. This is something I think is on his heart. This is something I think that Deion Sanders has on his heart, and he wants to influence, impact, and engage these young men and create a culture. And maybe by creating that culture in Colorado, maybe he creates it somewhere else across the globe. Maybe it turns into one of those Verizon or AT&T maps that you see all over the place, and people start worrying about the culture, and they start worrying about their kids, and they start worrying about the way that, you coach them, and not necessarily on the scoreboard of the game, but the scoreboard of life. And is your kid going to win? Are your kids, your student athletes, are they going to be successful in the next chapter? We are very, and I mean very fortunate that we have so many great coaches here that not only care about their student athletes when they're on the field or in the field of play, no matter what that sport is, but they care after. I guarantee you, not one graduate at South Range that's on that football team will be overlooked by Dan Yeagley at any point when they graduate this spring. Guarantee it. Same thing goes with Coach Q. Same thing goes with 99% of the coaches. And I'm not just talking about football. One of the biggest influencers in my life to this day, if he said, go run through that wall, I'm running through that wall. It was my baseball coach my senior year in high school. Guy that came in, didn't know me from anybody else. I said, I'm here for you. We're going to do it. You tell me to go run through that wall, coach, I'm going to run through that wall. You tell me to run with my knee guards on, running laps, because, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to be the fastest. I'm going to finish probably dead last, but I'm going to do it. And every single practice, at the end of practice, he reminded me, do you want this? Do you want to run with your teammates? Yes, I do. After catching 4 or 5 bullpens, legs are burning, arms absolutely rubber, right? We line it up and we go. And I would do it in almost full gear, everything but my helmet. And I remember him always saying that whatever doesn't kill you is going to make you stronger. And if you complain about it, it's not going to do anything for you. It's just going to make it harder. Nobody cares. Work harder. Simple, right? Nobody cares. Work harder. And while that was offensive the first time, right, when you hear it as an 18-year-old, you grow up and you go, whoa. All these great things that are happening to me, nobody cares. Work harder. All these terrible things that are happening to me, nobody cares. Work harder. We're fortunate in this area to have not only great coaches, great influencers, great mentors, great people. Don't take it for granted. Don't take it for granted. If they're looking to change the culture, put your hand in the pile. If they're looking to keep the culture the same and take it to the next level, put your hand in the pile. This is what sports is about. Sports is about learning how to be competitive, how to be a sportsman, how to compete. And fortunately, unfortunately, whichever way you look at it, that's what you have to do every day when you wake up and get out of bed. You've got to compete. Somebody wants your job. Somebody wants your salary. Somebody wants your wife. Somebody wants, maybe hopefully, leave my wife alone. Let's just put it that way. Somebody wants your Kool-Aid, right? Somebody wants, this is a world full of I want. But fortunately, it's still a world full of, if you want something, go get it. Nobody cares. Work harder. Nobody cares. Work harder. Let's hit the Joe Dickey Electric. What's your spark? Presented by Joe Dickey Electric. Anything commercial, residential, anything electrical, anything that makes you go, zzz, you call or visit my buddies over at Joe Dickey Electric on the web at dickieelectric.com. Here we go. All right, so this weather is my spark. My good, like, people are just, I mean, people are going to get sick. Yeah, and I hate being that guy. People are going to get sick from this weather because it's like this. Like it's 45 today, 55 tomorrow, something like that. Goes back down, comes back up, snow in the forecast, sunshine in the forecast. I know. Welcome to Northeast Ohio. However, please, spring sport athletes, dress accordingly. I saw people out in shorts yesterday. It's not that warm out. And you're not that brave. Like that. I remember kids, when you get to almost the age of 40, I say almost because I've still got a couple ice cream seasons before I get there. However, you're going to start speaking like your parents. You're going to hear it just ooze out of your mouth, and there's nothing you can do about it because it starts here and there's no stopping it. It's no filter. Excuse me, no filter. I remember wearing shorts all the time. You know what I mean? Because it's just easier, right? It's just easier. You don't look cool. You look like a fool. Like if it's 10 degrees outside, stop wearing shorts. Your teammates are depending on you. Your coaches are depending on you. Your parents are depending on you. You are depending on you. Do not get sick because you don't wear a jacket, because you're not wearing a coat. Just because you're not cold right then does not mean that standing after the game, talking to your girlfriend or, whoever for 45 minutes, you're not going to get cold. And that's going to do a number on you. And just remember, we were fighting for this in 2020 with COVID. Don't be dumb. Wear a jacket. Wear a coat. You're much rather be hot and getting in your car and that's warmed up and you can take your coat off and be relaxed for the ride home or the bus or whatever it is, than freezing cold, then you warm up and then you get sick. Like, again, take care of yourself. Not many places have athletic trainers, but what I can tell you is in going from no trainer to a trainer in high school to college, what they tell you is body maintenance. Take care of your body. It's the only one you're going to get. And it starts internally and then pushes outward. So if you're not wearing a coat and it's 30 degrees outside or 10 degrees outside or whatever it is at that particular moment in Northeast Ohio, and you don't have a jacket on, the only jack that people are looking at is you, right? That's it, because you look like a jackwagon. So wear a coat. Dang it, kids, get off my lawn. That is going to do it for our show today. Thanks to you for listening, for watching. Appreciate it. If you're just having me in the background, greatly appreciate it. Thanks to Jim Powers for the notes. Greatly appreciate that as well. And I will see all of you tomorrow from 3 to 4 right here on your sports network for the Ysn Power Hour, proudly powered by our friends over at Toyota Vorn. Have a great day. God bless you. Ysn